Well, hey y'all, and welcome to the Hillbilly Chicken Ranch. I'm Susan, your hostess, and this is Pie November. I want to thank Luann over at Blackberry Rock Homestead for thinking up this open collaboration, and we are going to make a pie that is from Mayberry RFD. This is the Aunt Bee's Mayberry Cookbook, and you can find both recipes in here. Now when I get to the pie filling, I'm going to tweak the recipe just a little bit because the first time I made it, it was a little bit on the dry side. I didn't like that, so I wanted more meringue on top. So we're going to make a meringue pie. It's going to be a chocolate meringue pie. It's one of Opie Taylor's favorite pies, and we're going to start with Opie's no-fill pie dough. Now this recipe is found on page 200 of this cookbook. I think you can still find these online, and you can use this dough for fried pies as well, and you want to refrigerate it for 1 hour if you're using it for a fried pie, and you want to cut back on your shortening to 3/4 of a cup if you use it for a fried pie dough. So anyway, we're going to get into this recipe. We're going to do this in 3 parts. First, we're going to do the pie crust, then we're going to do the filling, and last, we're going to do the meringue. So you want to stick around from the beginning to the very end for the complete recipe for this pie. This is my favorite go-to pie crust recipe, y'all. It is so flaky and delicious. You will not believe how good this is. All my ingredients assembled and everything that I'm going to need. You're going to need an all-purpose flour, an AP flour. You're going to need salt. I'm using a kosher salt. You're going to need sugar. I'm using an organic sugar here. You're going to need shortening. I'm using Crisco. You're going to need an egg, water, and vinegar. And this is a 5% vinegar. And 6 tablespoons of water. So the first thing we're going to do is measure off 3 cups of the AP flour. So let me move this up and get this out of my jar. Whoops, there goes my rubber band. And I need to remove my spoon. And I've got an oxygen absorber in there. Sometimes I have an oxygen absorber. Sometimes I have bay leaf, so I just have to watch what I have in there. We're going to spoon 3 cups of flour. So I'm going to do this over my measuring bowl so I don't get flour everywhere. And there's 1 cup. You have to pardon my doggie. She's a little bit voicey. There is 2 cups. And 1 cup is 240 milliliters for those of you that are not from America and you use the metric system. Let's get that 3rd cup in here. And I think that's good. I'm going to stick my spoon back in my container because I'm going to need some flour here in a little bit. And there's my 3 cups of flour. We are going to need 1.5 teaspoons of salt, or you can use a 1/2 tablespoon measure, which is what I'm going to use. That is equal to 1.5 teaspoons. And we're just going to sprinkle that over our flour. We're going to get that incorporated. And I'm going to use a spoon to stir that and get that mixed in there very, very well. Get that salt mixed all through that flour. And we're going to leave a little bit of a well in the middle of our flour. Now we're going to go with 1 1/4 cups of shortening. So, you know what? I don't need this extra measuring cup. I'm just going to use the one I had the flour in. And we're going to measure out approximately 1 1/4 cups of shortening. So I want to press it into the bottom because I want to get it all in there. So that's pretty close to having 1 cup. And we're going to call this a 1/4 cup on top. So we're just going to drop that right on into our flour. And we're going to get this incorporated into our flour. Sometimes you just got to get your fingers in there to get it off that spoon. Perfectly okay. We're going to take care of that. I've got a dough kneader, but if you don't have a dough kneader, you can use a fork. But you want to get some of that flour onto your shortening to start with. And you're just going to cut into that shortening and flour. And you have to continually scrape this. You're going to have kind of large pieces. That's fine. You don't want them real big, but you do want them to get it good and incorporate it into that flour. And at some point, I usually get my hands into the dough, just so you're aware. I'm a messy cook. And I guess she's going to be barking all the way through this because she's been a bad little girl today. Okay, I'll show you what this looks like. That is what it looks like. In closer, I've got one of our farm fresh eggs. I'm going to crack it. There you go, all cracked. And we're going to beat that slightly. We're going to add it into the water. And we're going to add in our vinegar. We're going to incorporate this into our dry mixture here. This is where that spoon comes in handy because you want to start moving this around and get that dough moistened. This is a pie crust that will make two pie crusts. It will be for 1 or 2 pies, depending on the type of pie that you're making. So I'm going to be using 1 pie crust today. The other one will go into the freezer and it will be used for Thanksgiving or Christmas. It freezes very well. So we're going to get our hands in here now, y'all. We're going to get messy because we want to bring that pie crust together. And then I'm going to clean my counter up and bring you back. So we're just going to continue to mix this until all that dough is mixed. Now you can once you get it into a ball, you can go ahead and divide it up, and you can put it in the refrigerator for an hour if you want to. If you do decide to freeze it, you want to let it defrost naturally overnight. But this makes a very, very good pie crust. So we've pretty much got all that flour incorporated now, and it's starting to form a ball. One thing about pie crust is you don't want to overwork it. So I'm going to leave it at that. We're going to come back after I get my hands cleaned up and my counter cleaned off. I'm going to get my mat out. We're going to start rolling this out. And I've got a tablespoon of flour here, about a tablespoon and a half of flour back there for the rolling pin and for the top of the dough. And I do need my dough cutter out. Get my dough cutter. If you don't have a dough cutter, you can use a butter knife. We're going to move this over here and get this formed into a ball. And you can see it's a good amount of dough here. And I'm just going to get flour on all sides, and then I'm going to cut this in half. And we're going to say that that's half. That will go into the refrigerator. This is going to be made into a pie shell. You're going to take a little bit of this flour, sprinkle over that, and also flour your rolling pin. And I like to turn my dough. And the idea is to get your dough bigger than your pie pan is. So you may have to do a little bit of finagling with it. And if the dough tears, this is a very forgiving dough. You will find it is really easy to repair. So we have rolled out our dough. I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit more flour in there. And we're going to try to lift this without tearing it up. So I'm just running this around the edge of the pie dough to try to loosen it from the mat that I'm using. To try to loosen this dough up a little bit. And I'm just going to roll it. Everybody does it differently. This is how I do it. And I've torn a hole in it, but that's okay. Now we're going to move this mat and bring our beautiful vintage pie plate over here. This is a ceramic pie plate that I'm using today. We're going to lay that dough on the edge. And we're going to roll this out. And any adjusting that we need to do, we'll do. And it looks pretty good. I'm going to press it into the pie pan. And then we'll come back and we'll work on these edges. I'm just going to tear some of this off and just kind of plug in any place that doesn't have a good amount of dough coming up over that edge. Like I said, this is a very forgiving dough. We'll pinch off any of the excess. Put a little more dough there. dough there. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'll throw that over in my other piece. We're going to go and 2 fingers on the outside, 1 finger on the inside. And we're just going to make a scallop all the way around this. Pretty little scallop. And I missed some dough over here. If I need more dough, I'll come back and grab some of that. But we're going to do this all the way around the edge. There's a lot of different tools that y'all can use to make a really pretty edge on your pies. If you worry about the edge of your pie burning, you can always make a little shield with some aluminum foil. We try not to use aluminum anything in our kitchen if we can help it. Because my mother had Alzheimer's, and one of the things the doctor told us was that was the aluminum cookware with her that she used. So I think that looks pretty good. What do y'all think? We're going to get a fork and we're going to prick the inside of this. You prick this to keep it from bubbling up and creating air pockets in your pie crust. So I'm just going to go around about every inch or so and prick this around the edge, and then I will prick the bottom of the pie crust as well. And that looks good on the side, so I'm going to go ahead and do the inside. And we have pricked the inside of the pie crust. I'm going to set this aside, get our kitchen cleaned up. We're going to move on to page 2 of this pie. Now on part 2 of our pie making adventure. Now this is Opie's chocolate pie. It's found on page 192, so it's just a few pages back from the pie crust recipe. And you'll notice I have tabs marking certain recipes in this book. I love this cookbook. So this calls for 1½ cups of sugar, 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. It calls for 3 tablespoons of cocoa, but we like dark chocolate, so we're going to double that and maybe add a little bit more if we think it needs a little bit more. I'll do a taste test on it. 3 egg yolks, slightly beaten. We will save the egg whites, and I'm going to add 3 more egg whites to my egg whites because I didn't think there was enough of the meringue the first time I did this pie. 6 to 7 tablespoons of sugar with the egg whites, and then we're going to add in 3/8 teaspoon of cream of tartar to the meringue for each egg white, and that's not part of the recipe. So we're going to get this started, and I'm going to show you the rest of it, but I have added a few things to this recipe to make it to our liking, so you make it your own. Our AP flour. We're going to start with our sugar. Now this is an all-natural cane sugar. It's organic, and it's already at the 1½ cup mark, so I don't need to measure that. I've already got it measured in the jar. So we're just going to pour all of that in there. I may have to get a spatula to get the remaining of that out of my jar. It calls for 2 tablespoons of AP flour. I'm going to go ahead and get that out of here, and I'm just going to sprinkle that over the top of my sugar. And the next ingredient we're going to need is 6 tablespoons of our cocoa powder. Remember, I'm doubling the amount of cocoa in this because I didn't think it had enough of that chocolate flavor that we like. This is a really sweet pie, so I think the extra cocoa in there will kind of offset that. You could actually add in a little bit of coffee in place of your vanilla extract. 5 and 6. I'm just going to drop that in there for right now because I may want some more. I'm going to go ahead and just give this a toss, kind of get it started. And breaking up any of those big clumps of cocoa powder. And I'm going to add a pinch of salt. With when you're using a lot of chocolate, you want to add a little bit of salt. That just takes that bitterness out of that cocoa. All right. We need 1 cup of sweet condensed milk. I've got a 14-ounce can. This is approximately 1 cup. It's just a tad over. And if you didn't have this, you can make your own sweet condensed milk. It's really, really a simple recipe. Let me get my measuring cup over here. We're going to measure this out. That's all you have left in there. So, you know, it really isn't going to hurt it to have that little extra in there, I don't think. We'll go ahead and get this into our sugar and flour and cocoa mixture. And for the sake of the argument, I'm going to try it with the little bit of extra sweetened condensed milk. It's not going to make that much of a difference, I don't think. It's only a couple of tablespoons in there. And we need 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. This is La Vencedora Mexican extract. And it was gifted to me by Lazy Days Ahead with Jess and Elisa. There's their used sticker. So I really do appreciate this. And we need 1 teaspoon of this. So we're going to go ahead and get that in there. And the cook gets to taste the vanilla. I've got 3 bowls set out here because I'm going to have 2 sets of egg yolks. 1 for the egg whites. And these are our eggs from our chickens. So I'm going to start with this first bowl. We're going to get this, hopefully, get this egg yolk out of here. And that is a really thick, and that egg is just not cooperating, y'all. Oh well, we'll get another egg. We'll try it again. We're going to separate our egg. There we go. And there's our 3 egg yolks. And I'm going to do the rest of this and go grab another egg. Let me grab one more egg and I'll be right back. Alrighty. One set of these egg yolks is going to go in the refrigerator. The other one is going into our cake. This is going to get set aside for the meringue. So we'll set this one in the refrigerator. I will use that in another recipe. So we're going to slightly beaten these eggs. Yes, slightly beaten. Just enough to break them up. We're going to pour that over in our mixture for our pie filling. I'm going to go ahead and get our spatula out of here. We're going to save that spatula because we are going to need that to wipe down the sides of our bowl. We're going to get this all incorporated. Okay, we have our pie filling mixed. I'm going to move the camera back now. We're going to get this pie shell ready to go into our oven. Now the recipe says to bake this for 10 minutes at 425. I found that browned my pie crust too much, so I'm just going to do it at 350 degrees. So we're going to get that oven preheated. Okay, I've got my pie crust here. I'm going to clean up my mess over here. I'm keeping a spoon out because I may need it to get the rest of this out of that bowl. And we're going to pour this into our pie shell. And this tastes better, but I think I could have gone a little bit stronger on the chocolate, but we're going to go with what we have here. And I don't think my changes are going to really make that much difference. Our pie is ready to go into the oven. Doesn't that look good? It's a beautiful homemade pie. We're going to get this in the oven and we're going to get it baked, and then we're going to allow it to cool. While it's cooling, we're going to do our egg whites and turn it into meringue. Now the book says to cool your meringue before you cool your pie before you put your meringue on it. But everything I've read says to put it on there while the pie is still hot because that helps to get your meringue cooked on the bottom. So we're going to add our 6 egg whites in here. We're going to start beating this, and then we're going to slowly add in our sugar, and last but not least we are going to add in our cream of tartar. Come all the way up. Because I have 6 eggs in here, I have added 12 tablespoons of my organic sugar. And I have soft peaks starting to form. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to beat this, and I'm going to add in my 3/8 tablespoon times 6, or 3/8 teaspoon times 6, I should say. I want to get it right. So we're just going to set that back in the bowl, and we're going to go ahead and turn this back up. You can see that there is a soft peak forming. And it's 1/8 teaspoon, not 3/8. 1/8 teaspoon per egg. But I did add in extra because I've got so much sugar in this. I want to make sure that I'm going to be able to get good peaks out of it. We're going to set this in the refrigerator while we're waiting on that pie to finish in the oven. You can store this up to 24 hours in a closed container in the refrigerator, a sealed container. Our pie just came out of the oven. Doesn't that look pretty, y'all? It didn't overcook the crust by keeping it turned down, so that was a good thing. I'm going to go ahead and get this meringue on here quickly. And this is going to have a really good meringue on it this time around. Oh, yes. So the secret to a good meringue is what? You're going to beat your eggs until they start frothing really good. Then you're going to slowly add in your sugar. And it's 1/8 teaspoon of cream of tartar per egg white that you've used. So I think I've got pretty much all of that out of there. We're going to get this onto our pie. I'm going to start by scooching it down and just sealing those edges. And then we'll mound it up a little better. Oh, this looks so good, y'all. I can't believe this meringue looks this good. And it is beautiful, y'all. Just tap it a little bit to get some of those peaks that you love to have. I'm going to scrape the rest of this off and get it on that at the very top. We're going to get this back in the oven. We're doing it on a low boiler. I'm going to watch it very closely because meringue can burn very quickly. So let's get this into the oven. Oh my word. I did miss a spot on the top, but that's okay. This meringue looks miraculous. I want you to look at the height on that meringue. That is just absolutely beautiful. And I did not overcook it. It went in for about a minute and a half. Look at that meringue. Look at the peaks. Oh my goodness. White, soft, fluffy cloud on top of this pie. Now I'm going to allow this to cool and I'm going to refrigerate it. Now this should not weep because I put the meringue on there while the pie was hot, and I'm going to allow it to cool before we slice into it. It looks amazing, y'all. Yummy pie, y'all. Yummy pie. Would you like to try a bite? It's yummy. Look at the height on that meringue. That is just amazing. I've never had a meringue quite that high before. The crust is flaky and tender. The chocolate part of the pie is just about right for our taste buds. This is a very sweet pie, but it is so tasty. So it took us approximately an hour to an hour and 15 minutes start to finish to do this whole pie. And it is well worth the time, ladies and gentlemen, I can't tell you. Thank you again to Miss Luann at Blackberry Rock Homestead for hosting this open collaboration. Hashtag Pie November, y'all. You need to get in on it if you haven't already. It's well worth it. Try this recipe out. You can purchase the book online. I'm pretty sure it's Aunt Bee's Mayberry Cookbook, and the recipes are in there. I did tweak the recipe. You will find that in this video. So thank you again, my friends, for watching, and may you be fully blessed.